Non-MAGA conservative defense of Trump. What is very troubling to me is the way that the media seems to think that any conservative defense of Donald Trump is simply blind MAGA loyalty. Trump is not my preferred candidate in 2024. I'm not his biggest fan and I am by no means MAGA. But at the same time, I don't have to be a hardcore Trump supporter to see that what Bragg is going is not only legally flimsy, but extremely problematic for the precedent it sets. There are legitimate weaknesses in Bragg's case and a clear political motive to proceed ahead on these charges. But the media wants to make every defense of Trump into more evidence that all conservatives are only supporting him out of fear or blind loyalty. That couldn't be farther from the truth, and it's a distortion in order to distract from the many flaws in what Bragg is doing. If a prosecution and indictment are not based on sound legal theories, it is incumbent upon us to point these things out, regardless of the target, or, in this case, especially because the target here is a former president. I'm not against what Bragg is doing because I am a MAGA believer, but because his chosen course of action is simply too fraught with bias and weak legal theories. Agreed. They also assume that everyone who supports Trump is brainwashed by Fox News. Alvin Bragg campaigned for DA on message of getting Trump. This is lawfare. MAGA is an acronym. Media and politicians use things like MAGA to describe conservatives generally. They will say MAGA Republicans, as if it is an extremist group in a minority of the Republican movements. But every Republican they meet they'll accuse of being MAGA. It's a slur for them, not something truly meaningful in any way. The entire NY thing is a dog and pony show. What should be troubling is that the media knows the charges are mostly likely bullshit, but willingly and gleefully tries to get you to believe they aren't. Trump derangement syndrome is very real, and I think it's a big part of this. The fact that they're still going after the guy is pretty comical as well. I'm looking forward to the next two indictments. When conservatives say this is just a continuation of the witch hunt, and all the leftists who are currently clutching their pearls about this case suddenly start arguing back with that first indictment wasn't serious. But this one is, the goalposts are going to be moving all over the place. I am by no means MAGA. God damn it. Stop. MAGA is not a thing you can be. Stop using it as a noun. This is ridiculous. This whole thing is one giant slippery slope. It's really interesting how so many people cannot see that. Needing to defend Trump back in 2015 and 2016 is the reason why I turned MAGA in the first place. Man shrugging. So you let the media divide conservatives with a name that they turned into a slur. What exactly makes you different than what you think is a MAGA conservative or Republican? Amount of anti-Trump posts on this subreddit here is suspect. Who you guys voting for? Jeb? This is perhaps the most problematic element for the left right now. Forget defending Trump on any item where he actually succeeded. Saying a 2020 election with problems had problems. Calling out a weak case by Bragg. Or two very poorly handled impeachments. Even any criticism of Biden, who is terrible, gets you painted with the MAGA paintbrush. Donald Trump is flawed. This has been known for quite some time. In spite of those personal failings, he was able to become president. Despite his flaws, his charisma and ability to connect with the public allowed him to win the election. He was able to tap into the frustrations of the people and use it to his advantage. He also was able to use his celebrity status to his advantage, as well as his ability to speak to the issues that mattered to the public. Don't throw out the good just because you want the perfect. Not every candidate is going to be able to meet the requirements you have. Well, it's not just defense of Trump in this case. The Trump haters, particularly Scarborough and Sam Harris, seem to think all Trump supporters are primitive cultists. I'm highly educated, well off, and interested in both science and culture, and probably wouldn't be taken for a Trumpist at first glance. These people don't realize they are the kind of people they accuse others of being. The media doesn't concern me anymore, as they are always going to be militant left, most of them. We cannot control that nor change it. So we move on, and they will do what they do. Sure, the weak-minded will just lap up what they say, and there are many weak fools. But most were already predisposed to anything anti-conservative anyway, so it's irrelevant. Many independents are a bit more cautious about the media's message. And trends are showing that they aren't all buying what the media is selling anymore. The Democrats have arrested a campaigning presidential opponent on relatively weak charges that no first-time offenders ever see jail time. Until now, are going to imprison a former president and political campaign rival over a bookkeeping crime. Agreed. This is clearly based on agenda, with rules being selectively bad. That type of prosecution is wrong regardless of who it happens to. It's the new political way. Instead of defending positions with clear, concise arguments, debate is instantly shut down with ad hominem attacks. Example: I don't think we should be paying the pensions of people in Ukraine when we have federal, state, and local governments with unfunded pension liabilities. Response: you're a traitorous Putin lover. The media is wanting to ignore the fact more than 70% of people believe this is politically motivated and are worried about what it will cause in its aftermath. If they believe those 70% are all MAGA people, they must admit the election was stolen then. If 70% of the population is MAGA, Trump couldn't have lost, but they aren't. They just ignore everything they can't explain away. I feel the same way. I have no intention of voting for Trump again in 2024. I feel that an indictment of a former president and current presumed front-runner in the GOP primaries is extremely bad for the country and sets a bad precedent. Both if these things can be true at the same time. MAGA is a made-up word. There are no MAGA people. It's a failed insult based off Trump's campaign slogan. That's like calling Biden voters sniffers.